self-love coach bringing you this week's workshop entitled Releasing Your Past. And we're going to take a deep dive into how do we release the influence of painful events in our past so that we can know who we are, love who we are, and express who we are, like no kidding, in the present moment. And I love that, the present moment, because the truth is each moment is absolutely a gift. Each moment is an opportunity for us to get authentic, an opportunity for us to honor ourselves and make choices that serve our highest good, that move us in the direction of our dreams, right? Because oftentimes we find ourselves in a set of circumstances and we're like, this ain't it. And so I want to start by sharing my story when I realized this ain't it. When I realized it was time for me to stop and learn how to release or let go of, if you will, whatever in the past that was influencing my choices in the present. This was my story, my moment. I was home working on a project, and the next day I was going to be presenting for VPs at my company, and it was a big deal. So I was working hard, really wanted to get it right. And suddenly I hear a violent knocking on my door, and I realized quickly that it was my on and off again boyfriend, and we were in a moment of off, and I had broken up with him, and he was angry. And I was more concerned about what my neighbors would think than my own safety, and so I let him in. And as soon as I let him in, he pushed me against the wall, he pulled out a gun, and he says, "No one is ever going to love you the way that I do." And where I was back then with virtually no self-esteem, didn't love myself, I was really hoping that he was telling me the truth, that he loved me that much. Couldn't reconcile that a gun to my face meant he surely did not love me. And my neighbors did hear what was going on. They called the police. The police came. And the police asked me, "Do you want to press charges?" And I said no. I had him calm down, got my boyfriend to calm down. The police left. And the next day I rocked my presentation. I did amazing. And when my boyfriend called to say, "Hey, you ready to celebrate?" I said yes, as if nothing happened. And it wasn't until 2 weeks later, when I was staring at that same barrel of that same gun, that I had it. I was done with this. I knew it was time for change. And it wasn't because of the gun to my face, believe it or not. It's because I had this thought that in that moment I didn't care whether I lived or died. And that was so far from my truth, so far from who I am. I wanted to live. And I decided to do so. So the next day I pressed charges. The next day I started the process for a restraining order. You see, at that point, I'm going to read from my book, Meantime Love, A Woman's Journey from Self-Love to Self-Love. At that point, I had taken all that I could take. I no longer knew how to survive the life that I was living. I had been attacked, abused, used, raped, stalked, rejected, threatened, judged, and taken for granted, all in the context of my relationships. I had hit rock bottom, and I was determined to turn things around. And that's the truth. You see, that moment was a culmination of lots of unhealed, painful events from my past. And it was time. I got the message that time loud and clear. Sometimes we don't get the message loud and clear. All right? But I got it. And so, what does it mean to release? What was the work that was in front of me? that I got to do so that I would stop making choices based on unhealed trauma, unhealed pain, and how it was influencing me. To release. To release is to set free from the emotional attachment we have to someone, something, or some experience. Let me say that again. To release is to set free from the emotional attachment we have to someone, something, or some experience. I just want to say a quick note that oftentimes it's easier to see that we have attachments to a person. We want them in our lives, even when it's not healthy. There are reasons we want them in our lives. So it's more obvious when it's time to release someone out of our lives, right? But some things, like there are some things we can become aware of, like substance abuse, substances we might want to release, things, I don't know, things that are included in bad habits, the influence of media or what have you. But something also includes our thoughts about ourselves. Because oftentimes an event will have happened in the past, and sometimes it's a long time ago. But what we made up about ourselves as a result of that past event lives on in our minds. I've been sexually assaulted, then I am broken. That I am broken piece that lives on in our minds, that is not true. Because remember, we were born worthy, perfect, whole, and complete as we are. And that doesn't change. So that thought that because I have been assaulted, I am broken is erroneous. It's in error. But the danger is that the event happened a long time ago and the thought lives on. So when we're talking about releasing the emotional attachment, we're also talking about releasing those thoughts that have played over and over and over and has affected our choices over and over. When we think we're broken, we think we're less than, and we make choices that align with less than, not our dreams. So remember when I was talking about getting authentic? That's what I'm talking about. Getting authentic means operating from that place of worth. Understanding that you are worthy. The less than is inauthentic and influenced by erroneous influences. And in this case, we're talking about that come from and stem from past events, painful events, traumatic events. Okay? Got it? All right. So our past influences our present when we leave feelings from previous experiences unaddressed. Let me say that again. Our past influences our present when we leave feelings from previous experiences unaddressed. Those unaddressed feelings mold our choices. You see how that works? And so we get to release anything, person, experience, or belief that no longer serves us so that we can be ourselves uninfluenced by the past. All right? And so I want to give you 5 powerful tips on how to do that. And I will go deeply into those because this is the work. This is where, in my case, it changed my life completely. Turned my life around from that rock bottom moment. So I want to go deep into this because this is the work. This is the opportunity. And this is how we free ourselves up so that we can experience self-love. And just to remind you, self-love is a process of knowing, loving, and expressing your authentic self. No matter what people think of you, no matter what has happened in the past, and no matter what your circumstances are. Okay? So this is the inner work that I'm talking about, that supports you in moving through the process of self-love. Got it? So I'm going to take some time with these 5 steps. The first step is process your feelings from the past event in a healthy manner. Process your feelings from the event in a healthy manner. What does that mean? That means that we're not going to get through this without some feelings. One of the biggest reasons I have encountered with people as to why they don't want to look at their past or open up the past. You ever hear someone, that would require me to open up the past and I just don't want to go there. I've locked it up, thrown away the key. It's because those feelings can be so scary. I don't want to know where those feelings are going to go. They can get out of my control, and human beings like to be in control. So you want to have your go-to list of how you process your feelings in a healthy manner. Okay? I recommend 10 things that you can do to process your feelings in a healthy manner. Okay? Let me give you a quick example of what I mean by healthy. I like cookies. I like homemade chocolate chip cookies. And one of the things that makes me feel better when I'm having some feelings about something are homemade chocolate chip cookies. Now, 1 or 2 is a healthy manner. 5 to 10 might not be healthy unless you throw a lot of healthy stuff in those cookies. And for me, I like traditionally sugar, butter, all the good stuff, chocolate in my cookies. But I use that light example, 1, because I'm known for loving cookies, but 2, because it shows the distinction. It's okay to have a couple cookies if that makes you feel better, but when you start seeing it's in excess, that's when it becomes unhealthy. So you want to understand what are the ways for you that work for you, that when you're feeling some kind of way, when you're feeling hurt, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling frustrated, when you're feeling out of control, that you can bring yourself back, that you can come out of those feelings once and for all. At least the great fluctuating effect they can have on us. Okay? So some examples, other than eating something yummy, let me give you some ones, because I want you to start your list. I want you to have your minimum 10 on the ready. Some examples: praying, meditating, working out, that's my favorite, walking in nature, listening to inspirational music, talking with a trusted person, not just anyone. And that can get you started. Oh, dancing it out big time. Singing it out. I like to put on inspirational music and close my windows and sing at the top of my lungs. Sometimes my children are like, "What are you doing?" One of the other things I do is do a catwalk. It's weird. I don't know. Play music and I do a catwalk and do my freshest one, pump myself up, get myself out of the element or the influence of the feelings. I told you a secret. But have your list of 10. What works for you? So important. Again, we're not going to get through this thing called life without feelings. And then when we're taking on some of the tough stuff, you might get to go through that list and see what works. Or it might be a culmination of all of them that works, okay? Or a combination of some of them, all right? So process your feelings in a healthy manner so that you can start seeing clearly. Super important. It's like moving from haze and clutter to clarity. And when you start feeling that clarity, that perhaps means that you are complete with that first step and you have some clarity. The second step is make a conscious choice to heal from the painful events. This is a step that I made separate because sometimes we skip it. Sometimes we just, okay, well, I'm going to move through the motions of this. But have you made the decision that you're going to heal from this? It's like a gateway into the official time you're going to, and effort you're going to put towards healing and letting go of whatever the event is. And remember, the more traumatic the event, the more impact it has and the more time and effort it might take. And not like a hard and fast rule, because once you make the choice, sometimes it's actually a little easier because you're so scared of opening the box, opening up the pain. But once you make the conscious choice to heal, sometimes it moves way smoother and easier than we expected. All right? Oh, one of the things I didn't share in that first one is fear. Process that fear so that you can get to the step 2 of making the conscious choice to heal. Because fear does get in our way. All right. Step 3 is forgive yourself and others. Forgive yourself and others. Huge piece of the process and so important. And so I want to share that forgiveness liberates you from the past. Forgiveness liberates you from the past. And when you withhold forgiveness, now hear this, when you withhold forgiveness, what you're really doing is holding on to destructive feelings. So when we hold on to destructive feelings, guess what? They start showing up. We start showing up destructively in our lives. We start making choices that just destructive. Right? So when we're talking about forgiveness, there's 2 major pitfalls. The first one is that we think forgiveness is for others. Like, well, why would I forgive that person that did these things to me? Well, they're probably living their life. And maybe you forgiving them would help them along. But that's not what this is about at all. Forgiveness is for you. It is your breaking free of the destructive feelings that you're holding on to as a result of what happened with that person. So that's the first one that we forget, that it is not about the other person, it is for and about us. The second pitfall is oftentimes that we forget about forgiving ourselves. We forget about self-forgiveness. And sometimes we played a role in the painful event. Remember when I shared I went out with my boyfriend that night? I played a role. It doesn't mean it's my fault. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It doesn't mean I'm a dumb person. Some people might say, well, why'd you do that? It simply means I played a role. And when we're talking about self-forgiveness, am I going to hook myself on that for the rest of my, keep myself on that hook for the rest of my life, or am I going to let myself off the hook? Because Anita back then is the one that made that decision. Because I have some new experience right here and right now to understand that that wasn't the best decision for myself, now I can let myself off the hook. Why would we do that to ourselves and hold ourselves in position, if you will, to who we were back then? And to the set of circumstances and all of the experiences that we were having back then that set the stage for it. No. I got to forgive myself. I did my work. And I forgave him. Not for him. In fact, I haven't spoken to him since then. I did it for myself so that I can break that emotional attachment and release those destructive feelings that were no longer serving me. Does that make sense? And it's really important to be diligent about forgiveness. Just as a side note, forgiveness helps us stay clean and clear of potential destructive feelings. So why not do it on an ongoing basis? Have a practice, a forgiveness practice. Do it quarterly, do it monthly. I don't know what kind of stuff you got going on in your life, but continue to stay clear of some of those influences that unforgiveness can have. All right? Step 4, seek all the lessons. You ever hear the saying? I think, I'm not that good at saying, so I'll mess them up. But I think there's a blessing in the lesson or lesson in the blessing. I don't know. But basically, one of the things that helps us heal from the past is understanding that we received some blessing from it, some gift, some lesson that is going to help us in the current moment and in the future. So seek all the lessons. Now, we're seeking life lessons, lessons about life, and lessons about yourself. What have you learned about yourself? So life lesson, if we're going to use the example with this relationship that I was in, I ended up learning about domestic violence. And I learned that domestic violence is not about love. It is about power and control. And that even though I wanted to think that the person loved me, no, they needed someone to control and to have some power over, to make themselves feel complete. So they're on their own journey. They got some healing to do too. But that would be an example of a life lesson. And this is why I do so much work with people who have experienced domestic violence, because I learned a lot about it firsthand, and then I did more research, right? But that would be an example of a life lesson. But what did I learn about myself? I learned that I'm determined. I learned that I'm perseverant, that I can come through it all. I learned that I am loving, not only loving of myself to finally get out of the situation, but also there was a lot of time I spent in that relationship thinking that I could change the other person, that I could help them. And so I learned those aspects of myself. And this is a huge part of the healing. This is a huge part of how past events shape us, because we learn who we are authentically through any event. Okay? So again, we're talking about past events that are traumatic and hard and painful and sad or hurtful. But in anything that we accomplish or move through or go through in life, you are able to pick out, if you really think about it and put some thought into it, who am I today? Who am I as a result of that? I often tell people, well, start a book. Call it the I Am book. And when you go through trying times or grow through trying times, take a look at that. Who was I in this experience and through this experience, and who am I still today? And put in there the I am, the truth about yourself, not your judgment of yourself. Let me be crystal clear. Because if I was judging myself, I might look at it and say, I am weak, I am stubborn, I am wrong, I am bad. No. Use that I am book for the truth about who you are. And seek the things that are true about yourself no matter what the situation. And what you can do is, when you do that, through all the situations, through the accomplishments, everything that you've accomplished in life, you'll start seeing some of those things recurring. Courageous. That was the other thing. I'm courageous. I was courageous to get out of that. I'm also courageous to be able to talk in front of, lots of people. All right. So courage shows up in different areas of our lives or my life. And that's how I get the information that perhaps I am courageous. So I recommend to you starting that book and look at all of the events in your life, accomplishments, traumatic events, hard events that you've gotten through and moved through, and start distinguishing those ways of being that are true for you. It is a gift because each time you do it, you'll start believing yourself. And if you're struggling with understanding the amazingness that you are, how great it would be to have that as a reminder. Yes? All right, I went on a whole tangent, but it's so, so important. So let me just kind of circle back and remind you. Number 4 is seek all the lessons. And we're going to look at life lessons as well as what you have learned about yourself. And let that sink in. Because oftentimes when we persevere through challenging events, painful events, we learn some glimpse of the amazingness that we are, the authentic self. Okay? All right. Number 5. Recognize you have the opportunity to get authentic with each new moment. Recognize you have the opportunity to get authentic with each new moment. So now, in step 4, you learned a lot about who you are. And you learn the ways of being that are going to have you move through new opportunities, new moments from this place of worthiness. And when you do that, when you recognize the moment and then you operate from that place, you're going to start seeing successes happening. You're going to start seeing successes happening. You're going to start seeing, oh, I got into a healthy relationship this time because I gleaned the important stuff out of that experience and left what didn't serve me anymore, those destructive feelings, those destructive beliefs or thoughts. So we move into the new relationship, right? And this is not just about relationship. That's the example I've used because I shared my story. But something could have happened on the job. Something could have happened in your health, right? Sometimes we get a diagnosis and we have to move through a very scary sickness or disease or disability. And you might draw on, well, who am I now today? I have a dear friend who had breast cancer. And I watched the best aspects of her shine through. She carried those great aspects of herself into life now. And one of the life lessons she got was, I'm going to enjoy every moment. And if it's something I don't want to do, I'm not going to do it. Life lesson. So it's not just relationship. I just want to throw that in there. It could be any area of your life that you move through something traumatic or challenging or painful, that you will learn who you are or more about who you are and about life. And then you have each new moment as a beautiful opportunity to make a choice that is aligned with your highest good and greatest joy, as my husband would say. Highest good and greatest joy. Yeah? And so you're going to start seeing some successes. You're going to start seeing where you're authentic in these moments. And when you do, here's my last recommendation. When you do, celebrate it. Celebrate it. We are really, really big humans. We are really big on being hard on ourselves when we don't get it right. Being hard on ourselves when the event didn't go well. When it was sad, bad, painful, you name it. And we go in and we start buying into all the negativity about it. So now we want to shift the paradigm. And you start seeing successes of moments where you are authentic and you make the choice based on what is going to serve you. And just remember, sidebar, when you make choices that serve you, that serves your loved ones. You're being an example, and you are being your whole self and serving your whole self so that you can be your whole self for others. So I just gotta put that out there because I know we do that to ourselves too. How do I do what serves me? Well, know that it serves your people. And when you do that, celebrate it. In the celebration, it takes that moment and solidifies it in your mind in some way, some form or fashion. And you want to do that as much as possible to stop thinking from the negative perspective and start thinking about all the great things that you can accomplish in this thing called life. No matter what you have been through in the past. All right? Work these steps. They'll work them. They will work if you work them. And that's what I have for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you.